Hey guys, Rob from Georgia here with you, aka VHS82 apostrophe, with episode 3 of our long-running X-Files series, season 4, Teliko, directed by Jim Charleston. Not even sure why I had to look, but you never know when things might slip. Jim Charleston. This dropped October 18th, 1996. Teliko, a Greek word for literally, I think, end or final, which is interesting to think about. Jim Charleston did Synchrony, Elegy, Avatar, some other episodes, 4, I believe, altogether. Written by Howard Gordon, who contributed 20 episodes, seasons spanning 1, 2, 3, 4. Jim Charleston, interesting. He served second AD on some early 80s classics like The Unseen from 80, Butcher Baker Nightmare Maker 81, Hell Night 81. Just watched that recently. Rest Stop 06. Isn't that funny? Production assistant, a couple classics here. Tourist Trap from 79 and The Hearse from 80. So he's been around the genre, which, when you consider that, well, okay, so anyways, the guest in this, phenomenal. Zakes Mokae plays a character named Diabria. I think I said it right. I got the pronunciation written on the page. We'll say it again. But as a diplomat for Burkina Faso, West Africa, which I think really is, okay, so, well, Zakes Mokae, if you don't know him, he was the antagonist in Wes Craven's The Serpent and the Rainbow. Freaking awesome. Carl Lumbly is Marcus Duff. He plays a immigration social worker. And this is sort of an immigration-related or rooted, somewhat Monster of the Week episode. Willie Amakye, I hope I get that right. Apologies, as Aboa, or the mythical Teliko. I was saying Teliko, right? Laurie Holden back, second episode, but last time we saw her for the first time in Inveigle, the season opener, as Merida Covarrubias. And this is funny because this is a Monster of the Week episode and unconnected to the mythology or mythos, other than she's in it, which actually helps Mulder gain an audience with this Burkina diplomat who really has much more to this story, this episode. Okay, so a little bit of the a little bit of that. Okay. Oh, and the cinematographer, Jean Joffin, back. He's the guy who, of course, cinematography for Home, which, by the way, I'm so embarrassed I couldn't remember the name of the town. Home. We only said Home a million times throughout that episode. And that was the name of the town, Home, PA. Anyways, felt horrible about that, but I'm not going to redo an entire episode because of that junk. Y'all get it. Y'all know how it is, right? So anyways, what I think of Teliko. Okay, so this is an interesting episode. I'll be honest, brutally honest. First time I watched this, I thought, oh my God, what am I gonna, this is just, I'm just not feeling it. And then I watched it again, and I try to watch an episode. I'm getting better at watching episodes multiple times throughout a week if I can. So I think I saw this one 3 times. And the third is always the best because it's usually early Sunday morning down in the movie room with my youngest son. And in a pitch black room with the subtitles on and just sort of immerse myself. And that usually ultimately is always the best outcome in terms of how I feel. First time, it could not have been further off the radar, the radar or whatever of how I felt. Just really wasn't looking forward to it. It just didn't hold anything for me. But by the time I finished this morning, okay, we got a lot to talk about here and not enough time. I really don't want to push this 40 again, but so really what you have here in a nut, this is a worthy episode. So a lot of talk on is it an anti-immigration reason to hate foreigners or be suspicious of foreigners? A lot of that kind of talk in terms of critical reviews and whatnot. Everything is subjective, and yeah, there might be subtext with intent and purpose, usually always to some degree, or it just comes accidentally, hits the mark perfectly. George A. Romero's, of course, much, not all of his work. This is a moment where I don't know how purposed the right, Chris Carter, I think this was the episode where at some point he says, why are we telling this story? And that's a worthy question. Why are you? To provide a sort of subtext on racism, teaching some sort of lesson in terms of those sort of things? Or is it simply really just to tell a Monster of the Week episode free of all that? Or tell that Monster of the Week episode, but in a way that the subtext speaks for itself without ever really feeling forced? And I don't know if it feels forced in this at all. I think too many people read into subtext, whether it's there or not, and pull for it what they want to see. And so this is an easy episode. You've got this Aboa, who is this sort of Teliko, is a sort of a spirit of the air demon. It is a creature of the night. Our diplomat from Burkina Faso, West Africa, Burkina Faso. So he sort of gives a really good explanation of what sort of this creature is, but just to kind of give a quick little layout, of Boa gets a flight. I'm not sure exactly how he paid, or unless he may just stows away on a flight. I'm not sure how he really gets on this flight, but the opening show is on a plane flying from Burkina Faso, which is 3 months prior to where this episode picks up. He's already been 3 months living in this country as a residential alien. I think that's the correct term. Whose social worker is just sort of keeping tabs on him and trying to work it out so he becomes a U.S. citizen type thing. So he's on a plane though, right? And this sort of spirit of the air, this demon creature of the night, or perhaps just an evolved last of a tribe from long ages ago, type, which Mulder seems to think this has more to do with a lost tribe that is, as a result of not having a pituitary gland and that area, the hypothalamus, the only way it can survive is by stealing the pigmentation from other people, mainly, in this case, the creature, I'm just assuming, in origin, is West African. Therefore, the pigmentation it's looking for is of those similar people, right? In this case, West Africans. And so this is sort of the pigmentation stealing process. Now, it's interesting because when I use words like hypothalamus, something might ring off in your head like, wait a minute, what are you talking about? Well, a year later, they made the relic. Interesting parallel. By the way, this is my VHS copy. I haven't shown one off in, I don't know, a couple episodes, but this is my beautiful VHS copy from back in the day, Blockbuster. Probably bought it when they were getting rid of stuff, right? But anyways, if you've seen the relic, this is a perfect companion piece for this particular episode. Watch the episode first and then watch the relic. It's funny how stuff gets into the water and then people sort of drink from it, and then you find interesting parallels. So anyways, the opening scene involves pre-credits. It involves an attack on a West Africaner who is coming probably for business, coming into the country, and he is hiding in the restroom when this guy comes into the restroom. Of course, he's hiding up. Great imagery, cinematography, really creepy moments. I wish the entire episode sort of felt that, and it doesn't. It's weird. But anyways, so this guy gets attacked, and when we see the aftermath, he is devoid of all pigmentation, right? So it kind of almost comes across as albino-like. Well, there's this creature who masquerades as a just a normal human being, arrives in the United States. 3 months later, we got 4 missing, well, not missing, but 4 dead African Americans. And quite literally, I believe they're all immigrants. They could be all immigrants to this country. And Scully gets called in, and they want to make this into specifically a health crisis and nothing more, nothing less. Now, we'll find out later that the diplomat from Burkina Faso has swept that opening sequence under the rug for will come to be very obvious reasons when he does have his forced conversation with Mulder as a result of Corubius Marita reaching out and basically saying, you need to talk to Mulder on this one. You need to talk to him, right? So that'll come up. So while he is there, he's got to maintain his pigmentation. So he starts taking people out. So Scully begins it as a health crisis, but Mulder comes right in and to join the, as he calls it, the snipe hunt, because he never believes or buys into whatever is the angle that's being forced. And it involves a great piece of dialogue where Scully, at the end of that, which I do believe I put the quote down there below, says, Mulder, not everyone is out to deceive, inveigle, or obfuscate, which the last word, to darken or obscure, or to entice, seduce, persuade, or to ensnare. Not everyone is out to get you. And of course, Mulder's look to her is priceless, as always. And so, he begins to approach this as though there's something much more sinister at work, which he's right. A tomb's like sinisterism, which, there's this great moment where they catch up with Aboa, and they're scoping out his apartment, and Aboa must have been on a work crew, construction work crew or something. He's getting dropped off. Mulder sees him, tries to approach him. He runs. They chase. And ultimately, they find he's hidden himself in this sort of like a drainage pipe with inside a building, small little tiny hole. And it's so Tombs-like. And, Mulder, I just wish they would have written in a line that would have been something like, hey, Scully, does this look familiar? Or something to Tombs, right? Something to Tombs or Squeeze or whatever. And there's really nothing given at all. And I really wish there was more of that. I mean, you do get it once in a while. So anyways, ultimately they apprehend him, arrest him. Now, obviously, I'm missing a whole bunch. This is one of those weird episodes where you watch it once and then you can just basically walk off and forget the whole thing, move on to the next episode. Or you can just sort of find your place, get stuck, and then you suddenly realize there was a lot of junk going on here. A lot of junk. And so they apprehend him, bring him in, begin the test. They realize he's got a missing pituitary gland, hypothalamus, which really he shouldn't be alive, and they start to realize there's something much more sinister here. Aboa is an interesting creature. He takes his victims down with a dart, a sort of blow dart, but it's a seed from a sort of thorny seed that comes from a certain flower in West Africa that has the ability to basically paralyze you in place, almost nearly. Just sort of shuts down your limbic system, everything inside, and just causes you to be a ready victim for what he needs to do to you, which is really creepy. Some of the scenes in the imagery, there are 2 scenes in particular where because of the paleness of the face, he sort of protrudes from the darkness in a very Halloween 2 way. 2 memorable scenes where Michael, because of the paleness of his face, sort of just emerges from the darkness. There's 2 scenes really great like that. There's a scene that involves a tunnel chase where, Scully's starting to get really freaked out, looks down, and because of the darkness and then the flash of her flashlight, he comes around the corner and all you see for a split second is his eyes, man, and it is creepy. But there's not enough of that. And there's not enough of this being a Monster of the Week episode. Because of Mulder basically nailing down Covarrubias. It's probably close as I'm going to get today. On that, he gets a meeting with the with our diplomat from Burkina Faso, Diabria. The final two letters UH from above, which is funny because aboa means in the hole or the pit or the trench, which is a contradiction too, in the sense that he's a spirit of the air and yet living down here. It's kind of a interesting play on words broken down in meanings, and that doesn't always happen, but that just tells you that when they were writing, they really were sort of thinking their way through this. But in his conversation, Diabria, who's again played by Zakes Mokae from Serpent and the Rainbow, freaking he's just a great antagonist in that. He makes mention that he had experienced this, as he calls it, this sort of supernatural folktale where he had woke up and was faced with this demon, this creature. And he relates and describes how this creature lives in or hides in closed, dark places, deep inside tree hollows or holes beneath the ground. Only when the sun fell, when the rest of the world was sleeping, would he come out. He's sort of taking up into the air, and he sees into this creature, hair like straw, eyes like water. Kind of interesting imagery there. And suddenly finds himself waking up, probably feeling like he was in a nightmare, but in his father's arms, who reassures him it's just a nightmare, don't worry about it. And so he believes it, at least until the next day when his cousin is found dead without any of his pigmentation, along with amidst the cattle, with the cattle. And so when the ambassador gets, the diplomat gets the case that we see first beginning of the episode, when he gets that, he's so struck with terror at just the idea that this thing is really real, true. He just sort of sweeps it under. There's no autopsy. There's nothing. It's just sort of just swept under and away. Well, as a result of, Mulder's connection at the UN now, he's able to get that information out of him, which sort of paints a better picture of the creature that they are dealing with. And there's some great scenes. Like there's a scene where he gets this kid at a bus stop, and there's a great scene. It's one of those moments where you can kind of read into and say, you know what, people can be pretty terrible at times. He's been hit with the dart, and he's sitting at the bench at a bus stop. Bus pulls up. It's at night, late at night. Guy's like just being a jerk. You just gonna sit there. You're not gonna get on. Blah 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 blah. I don't care. Walk for all I care. And so he ends up leaving him there. Well, the kid's been hit with the dart, and he can't move, and his eyes are all glossed over, and he's about to fall victim. Well, that was a moment when the guy should have just stepped out of the freaking bus and just said, "You're right? Like, what's wrong?" Like, because the kid looks, there's no reason in terms of his, here we go, we get a little stereotyped here, but in his dress and appearance, there is no reason. Now, the guy who's driving the bus is white, and the kid is black, but there's no reason in terms of aesthetics, appearance, or whatnot. There's no reason for this bus driver, and he's a pretty big guy, not to get off of this bus and go, "What's wrong with you?" And so I can see there is a moment where, the subtext sort of, peeks his head up through the surface of the narrative, I guess, and sort of begs this question, just how awful people can be, or in terms of not regarding the welfare of others, and so there is that one scene there. But much of the episode plays out as a creature feature or a monster of the week episode, but at times it also wants you to think about, when we have the social worker who's extremely upset that a boa has been targeted, can't understand why. He relates to Mulder when, boa initially runs from them and they got to chase him. And Mulder's like, that kid is hiding something, and I'm going to find out what that kid is hiding. And the social worker's point is, look, if you came from anywhere like we've come from, because the social worker does the work because of where he's come from, and so he understands the plight of these immigrants and why they want to leave, why they're leaving. And so he says, if you've ever been beaten by the police or have your home burned down to the ground, maybe you'd understand this a little bit. But Mulder sort of, and he may understand, but there's none of that shown, but immediately goes to the point of, no, this kid's hiding something, and I want to know. Now, in the case of the narrative here, Mulder's right, and the social worker's wrong, and he will be proven wrong because he'll fall victim himself to a boa, nearly losing his life. So it's a complicated strand of thought going on where I think, we're to think about race issues and stuff. At the same time, it's a little complicated because on the one side, Mulder's proven right and the social worker's proven wrong. And so it's sort of complicated like that. But you can't deny that there are issues. And so an anti-immigration sort of episode, this is not. I don't think by a clear shot this is not. I really think the subtext would have been more, if this is what you're shooting for, I think it would have been more pliable or I think it would have hit the mark better if it would have been done in a way, maybe more George A. Romero-like, if it would have just sort of been like, well, here's the story as we've, created it. Let the subtext play out the way it will. And if it doesn't hit people, it doesn't hit people. But if it does, it'll probably hit them in a really good way. And I think that's the right way to go about things sometimes, even if there's something you're aiming at. If you aim too hard at the target, it's going to come across a little obtuse-like, and people aren't just going to they're going to be hit the wrong way with it. Whether you think they ought to or not, that's how they will be hit with it, and not the way you want them to. You want them to think and consider something without necessarily, getting hit over the head with a particular thought or something. Anyways, some of the imagery, there are scenes like I've already mentioned that are just caught on camera beautifully. The final confrontation between Mulder and Scully and this creature is quite memorable. It's a good one. It's memorable. I wouldn't put it up at the top of the heap. But there is a great moment right at the end where, Mulder's been hit with the dart. He's somewhat semi-paralyzed. We've seen him before, right? Bad blood like this, or we'll see him. I don't think that one hasn't come yet. I don't think it has. But anyways, 4 seasons. No, that's like 5 or 6, right? So anyways, Mulder's laying there, and Scully is trying to get help, right? And even in the midst of his paralyzed self, he's sort of trying to use his eyes to tell her something is emerging from the shadows, and she finally catches it in his eye, and at the right moment, she's able to pull out her gun, turn around, just as he comes at her, and shoots him. They're able to take him in, and as a result of the loss of the chemical from the pituitary gland, he is slowly dying in the hospital. Probably, we assume he's not going to be able to stand trial for, and even he's a creature of the night. He's a spirit of the night who is home in a human body, but can't survive without these certain things. And so you would just assume he's going to end up just dying in the hospital and move right on. So I don't know, it's an interesting episode for sure. I'm just looking at to see if there's anything I missed or want to mention. I mentioned tombs, also to the feeding habit of this of a boa, which also there is this idea of a deadly plague. He's sort of a walking deadly organism which can infect people, which is an interesting subtext as well. But then again, that's tied to the immigration thing and borders open or closed or whatnot. Fresh Bones. There's a Howard Gordon also wrote Fresh Bones, which also deals with voodoo and similar themes. I mentioned that. There's a sense or sort of a sense of the legacy of European colonialism. I think I mentioned a lot. I hope more than anything, this is one of those that I don't know. I think it definitely deserves second look And I think the X-Files are great. They're great in the sense that there's going to be plenty of episodes where you're going to be like 10, 15 minutes in not feeling it, and you're just going to be like, okay, whatever, move on after this one. But I'm finding more and more that if you're just willing to stop, really assess, take a look, pause, just let it work on you, you generally can walk away a little bit more fulfilled than maybe you wouldn't have, generally speaking, if you get what I'm saying. So this is definitely one of those episodes, but it's definitely got some cinematography, again, a little bit of the same from home, except a lot more from top looking down, but there is from down looking up, which is, the cinematography is pretty good. Not near as memorable as home, but again, you're dealing with a different story and but this really could have been so much better. And I wish they would have somehow linked, in terms of writing, linked dialogue and made us remember previous episodes like Tombs, or even the Virgil and Kanta, who is from Tushai, who is feasting off the fats of women, which was pretty. So you got Tombs eating the livers, Encanto eating the fats. And by the way, there is I'm going to link you up down below, article from, I want to say the name was Darren Mooney. I can't remember the name of his blog right at the top, but it's there in the title and the link. He wrote a great piece on this particular episode that if you're interested to read a little bit further, the link is right down there for you. You just click on it and you're there, and check out what he had to say. I thought he had a really, really interesting take, and if I stole anything from it, it was by accident, so my apologies, but the link is down there. Full credit to him. Anything I might have pulled from him. It's definitely, I'm really, 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 I feel way better about this episode now than I had first time I watched it. But now we're ready to move on to the last one on this disc, Rue. Looking forward to that one as we get deeper into season 4 of the X-Files. So as always, we end these things off with Go Bills.
This is not a dream. Not a dream. We might be useful to you.